Okay, so new location. It's going to be a little echoey because I'm still moving into this room. There's some furniture, there's a carpet, but there are no books on the shelves yet. There's less furniture in here. There's one little chair, but I'm in my new house because I said I was moving. I don't think I told you guys I bought a house, but I bought a house. It's lovely. I love it. I don't know how much I want to show you guys the house. If you want to see more about the house, become a Patreon because that's where I tend to share those things. Those things just feel too personal for like the big internet. I'm a little scared. So today though, here, hopefully the echo isn't like horrendous. Maybe I can try and edit it. I know there's some things I can do in Premiere, but we're going to talk about the 45 new releases that I read this past year, and we're going to tier rank them. So it's going to hopefully be snappier than normal. Hopefully Ryan won't come home in the time that it takes me to film this because I am in a room that's above our garage. So I'm sure that sound will be very fun if it happens. But I wanted to get this filmed because I wanted to get this up next week. And as of now, I have no other pre-filmed things. So here we go. Let's screen record and get into it. All right, so here we are. I have 5 tiers. New faves for me. Great. Worth your time. Probably with caveats like all things. Fine. And skip it. Okay? And like I said, 45 new releases. Most of them fantasy and science fiction, and I don't think there's anything outside of those genres. I guess we'll find out as we go, but that's just who I am as a reader. So, Day for Fallen Night. This one, I'm going to put in fine, because I think it is very fine, but with the caveat that I think you should skip it if you are like me and feel like, you're not really vibing with Samantha Shannon's writing. But objectively, it's fine. It's truly an okay version of what it is. It's also just really long though. So for me, I should have skipped it, but House with Good Bones, that's great. Love that book. It's not a new fave, but I had a great time reading it. One of my favorite reading moments of the year. So I really like that. I think it's a great introductory haunted house book as well. If you are someone who, has been wanting to dip your toes in, it's got a good amount of humor to balance the kind of creep factors that show up later in the book. Amina El Sarafi, I think this one's worth your time if you like adventure fantasy. I don't think it's as good as the Davabad trilogy. I really like that. I think that had more character focus that worked for me, but I think it's worth your time. It's worth trying out. I know a lot of people who really loved it. I even didn't think it was like a bad use of my time. It's just not the tropes that I really like. Next we have Atalanta. I say skip it. I like the myth of Atalanta quite a bit. I actually did a poster project on Atalanta. I remembered by the end of this book, I was like, oh yeah, I drew a poster of this moment in the scene at the end of her myth. And I'm like, I thought her myth was really short. And it is. Yes, she's a part of a larger myth for Jason's. But I think I came to this eureka moment. A lot of myths are short stories. And so when you expand a short story into a novel, you have to be a very good author to do that. And most of the authors doing that are not up to the level I want them to be. So yeah, Atalanta, I think you can skip it. Even if you like Greek retellings, there are better versions out there. And I just don't think she does a good enough job expanding on the short story. Blood Over Brighthaven. This is also great. I love Emma Wong. I love The Sword of Kaigen. This one doesn't emotionally hit me the way The Sword of Kaigen did, but I think it's a better version of sort of adjacent dark academia, future fantasy for sure. If you're just like, I need cool fantasy things, you gotta check it out. Good commentary about prejudices and societies and how we use resources and how we take advantage of others. Oh, it's really good. So I really like Blood Over Brighthaven. That was a great one. Bookshops and Bone Dust. I think this is worth your time, especially if you like Legends and Lattes, but it might not work out as well for you. It depends. For me, I very rarely want cozy fantasy. So Legends and Lattes might have just been like lightning in a bottle. But it's a good form of what it is. Maybe a smidge long, but that said, it's still, I think, only a 300-page book. So I think for sure it's potentially worth your time. Potentially maybe read it before Legends and Lattes if you haven't read Legends and Lattes yet, because maybe then you'll get to see Aviv's character growth in chronological order. But I don't think the order in which I read it is why that it wasn't like a new fave for me. Chain of Thorns, again, I'm going to put this in fine. I think it's really worth your time to great until you get to the last 200 pages. And then it's that's just way too long to do falling action and climax in a book, especially a Cassandra Clare book. And that's why it's only fine for me, is the last 200 pages. I was having a great time up to that point, but I'm an endings person. And the ending is not different from other Shadowhunter endings. We wrap up the interpersonal drama a little too early, considering I was in this trilogy for the interpersonal drama. So that's just how it is. Clytemnestra, I think this one is fine. It might be even worth your time, especially if like part of the Iliad has escaped your brain and you're not close to it. I think, so if people were talking about Clytemnestra in my Discord, and some people really didn't like it because I think they were closer to the myth and understood this character, and the way that the author was playing with this character didn't feel true. For me, I had forgotten so much about this facet of the Iliad. It was just its own thing, and I was having a good time, and it was at least character development for a character in a Greek myth, so I was okay. But that said, the fact that it was the best of the Greek myths I read this year doesn't say much, and I'm now realizing that I'm missing a Greek myth on this, but I'm not remaking this tier. Just know that Stone Blind would be in Skip It. Okay, we'll just talk about that real quick. The other Greek myth I read this year was Stone Blind. I think you can skip it. I don't like it that much. I don't think it does enough different. I mean, it's just on the plus side, it is shorter, but I just feel like a lot of these retellings should be novella length. Like, I don't think they should be full-length novels. I don't think they have enough source material, or the authors are being creative enough to stretch them this far. The Graveyard Wells, this is a new fave. I love this short story collection. I love it so much. It is really good. It's definitely literary fiction, speculative short stories by a Zimbabwean author. Some are definitely more like, yeah, this is a sci-fi short story, and some are more like, this is more of a literary exploration. But I loved almost every story in this collection. Some of them go really dark. Some of them are a little whimsical. It was fantastic. The only thing that stopped me from buying a copy is, and it's a really dumb reason, and this just tells you how picky I am about some things, and I still probably will get a copy, but the pages are really white. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like they're really bright pages. So I don't really like the binding and the pages of it. But again, that's a dumb reason. I should just go get a copy. Really love the book. The Encyclopedia of Fairies, I think this is also worth your time. Especially if you've been liking the cozy fantasy realm, if you like kind of a different type of mixed media adjacent sort of thing. Like, these are diary entries, so it kind of has a fun narrative framework to it. I think Emily's a fun character to follow. I think she's a great pairing with Bamblebee, who's like, they're just like personality-wise is very different, and watching them work together and the will they, won't they of it. I think it hits a lot of comfortable tropes. I think it's a fun exploration of Fae. I think it's great for winter. So I think it's worth your time. It might not be a new favorite for you, but I think it's worth giving a shot. Fourth Wing, I want to say is great. It's great for me. Obviously, caveats. Like, if you do not like the things that are super popular in fantasy romance, then yeah, this is not going to work. If you do not like basically, if you don't like Sarah J. Maas, you're not gonna like this book. Like, that's the easiest one-to-one I can say. I think it has a tiny bit more world building than a Sarah J. Maas book, and a tiny bit more amount of stakes. But that said, like, it's pretty easy to say that if you don't like A Court of Thorns and Roses or A Court of Mist and Fury, this will not hit for you. And then how much it will hit for you just depends on how much you like tropes and how much you can be distracted from the plot and everything like that. For me, brain candy, super fun. And I guess we'll just also do Iron Flame. And I'm going to put this one in worth your time, because like most people, this didn't hit as well for me as Fourth Wing. But I will say that if you like Fourth Wing, Iron Flame is still worth your time. If you didn't like Fourth Wing, Iron Flame is not going to save it for you. It is too long. And actually, I was lucky because I read it kind of as two books by accident. There's a part 1 and part 2, and just how my reading life and life worked out. I read part 1 and then part 2, and that kind of helped with the length. But part 1 was way stronger for me than part 2. Fragile Threads of Power. Okay. I'm putting it in Skip It, but only for readers who are like me, which is that you've kind of not been vibing with V.E. Schwab books. You've tried Darker Shades of Magic, and it wasn't that good for you. I think you should skip it. I don't think it's going to suddenly make you like the world of Darker Shades of Magic. I don't think it's going to suddenly make you like V.E. Schwab's, and for sure, you do not start here. If you are just like, where do I start with V.E. Schwab? I don't care what she says on Instagram. No, you do not start here. You do not. It will make no sense. I mean, obviously, people pick up books in the middle of the series all the time and are fine, but honestly, no. Frugal Wizard's Guide, I also say this is a skip it. I just think I guess it is just fine. But in terms of, like, you have the Secret Projects by Brandon Sanderson, I think there are better versions of what Sanderson does here. Like, there's a trilogy of novellas Sanderson's written called Legion that I think do something like this so much better in terms of exploring a sci-fi concept with this type of eccentric male main character, first person point of view sort of thing. I don't know. I don't like this one. I think you can skip it. Hellbent for me, is it great or a new fave? Unsure. We'll put it in great. But I had a lot of fun with it. But what's interesting is I know several people who don't like it, but who are on different spectrums. So Tori Morrow really loves Ninth House. Like Ninth House is one of her favorite books of all time. Didn't hate Hellbent, but it was a disappointment for her. And then Stephanie at Bookish Steph didn't really like Ninth House, but kind of wanted to try Hellbent. And for her, it was too unserious. For me, this was like ideal. We are getting into Buffy territory. So for me, it was great. I love it. Inkblood Sister Scribe, also I think worth your time. It's I think fun contemporary fantasy. I enjoyed it. That's all I have. Is like I enjoyed that one. Labyrinth's Heart, new fave. I mean, it's the ending of one of my favorite series of all time. What can I say? Read The Rook and the Rose. I have a should you read for that. You should read it. Lightbringer. That's also probably tail end of new fave. That's one of my favorite books in the Red Rising series. That book had emotional highs and lows, and like I think both Labyrinth's Heart and Lightbringer kind of suffer in terms of my memory in being in a month where like when I read them, they were great escape and really awesome, but that month was really traumatic for me because of life. And so a lot of memories I have in that month are in a box somewhere and I can't like access them. But I remember some of the highs and some of the lows, and it was very well paced, especially because I like the Red Rising series. Obviously, if you don't like the Red Rising series, don't pick it up. I feel like that's obvious. Lone Woman, also a new fave. I talk about this book a lot. It's just such a good blend of dark fantasy and horror and thematic exploration and character development. And I love books set in like homesteading settings. And this one's even handled with more care than I'm even used to. The Garage is now going, so we're going to pause. All right, Love Theoretically, also new fave. But again, if you don't like Allie Hazelwood, you're not going to suddenly like Allie Hazelwood if you read this book. Like, I don't know what to say. I do think for me, this is my favorite of her books, but again, I don't know if that's really gonna like affect anything. New Sons, also a new fave. I love this short story anthology. I keep raving about it, and I even made a video for this book that I knew wouldn't do well. Still hasn't done well, but I didn't. If you like this, you like that. So it was a book recommendation video that also paired it with each of the short stories in this collection. It was so good. Our Share of Night, we're also going to say it's a new fave. I think about this book too much for it not to be a new fave. It probably should have been in my top 10 books of the year, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those books that's grown on me, and the actual reading experience wasn't like a new fave reading experience, but like, whatever. I love Our Share of Night. It's great. It technically didn't come out this year, but the translation did. So that's what I'm basing it off of, if only to talk about it. Indulgent horror. Try it out. It's super fun. Out There Screaming, I think is worth your time. For me, it wasn't as solid of an anthology as, say, like New Sons. I had more misses than hits. It was harder for me to pick up. I think some of the stories were just a little too long. I think it's a well-curated collection, though. There are some of my favorite short stories of the year in that collection. Like Tochiani Buchi, Jemison. There's some good stuff. But it's just not like an all-time favorite short story anthology. And I read a lot of anthologies. If you want a video where I talk extensively on short story collections and anthologies of the year, I have a video for that. So you can check it out in the end of the year playlist. Starling House is fine. It's a fine book. I have no complaints, but it also does not live in my head. It's okay. Swordcatcher, I think that one's worth your time. I wish it actually had an ending. That's my one thing, is I wish it ended. That'd be cool. But that said, I think it's worth your time. It's very different from other Cassandra Clare books. In terms of the focus, it's not as angsty. So if like one of your things you don't like about Cassandra Clare is the angst, it's not there. But if one of the things you like is the angst, it's not really there. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that one. The Blue Beautiful World is great. I love that book. I love that trilogy. I love that author. I have an author interview with Karen Lord. Yeah, I mean, who is shocked? I don't think it's for everyone. It's a very unique storytelling format, but although in this trilogy, it is the most linear. I have a should you read for that series as well. The Bone Shard War, I think you can skip it, but I say that as someone who really didn't like it. I really liked Bone Shard Emperor, the second book, but I was very, very disappointed in the third book, and I wish that it wasn't the third book, so I could have like just DNF'd it, but I just kept hoping the ending would save it for me, and the ending's not bad. Like, technically, I guess this book is just fine. So I should probably move it to fine, and I will. But, like, I regret it. I regret finishing it. So if you're like me, you should skip it. The Book That Wouldn't Burn, that's also fine. It's also left my brain for the most part. I don't have a lot of opinions about it. It's okay. I think you can see some of the twists a mile away if you have been reading fantasy and science fiction. It's one of those endings where it's like you can kind of treat it like a standalone, but not really. But I don't know. I think other books explore the themes in this a bit better. Heck, I think Doctor Who episodes have explored this better. Like, I literally watched a Doctor Who episode where I'm like, oh, that's very similar to this book I read recently. Like, super similar. Anyways, The Faithless is a new fave. I mean, I love C.L. Clarke's series. I cannot wait for the third book. I don't know when we're going to get it. Maybe next year. If not, I hope 2025. It would be fantastic. Last Tale of the Flower Bride, I think it's great. Yeah, I think I like that book more than I expected. Maybe that book should have been in my surprises. I don't know. Like, I enjoyed it. I think part of what holds it back is it's a two-person perspective story, and one of the perspectives is just so aggressively boring for me that I don't know. I had an issue with that. But I did really like the other one. I loved the atmosphere. Oh, the atmosphere was just lusciously gothic and dark fairy whimsical. It was great. Mimicking of Known Success is also great. I'm excited for the audiobook to come out for its sequel because I really like listening to the audiobook. And I think this is like my perfect version of like detective murder mystery-ishness. And I hope it continues with the sequel because I always feel like I don't have a Tor.com novella series to love. Everyone else has their things to love, and I'm just really bad at keeping up with novella series. So maybe this is my time. Maybe. The Sun and the Void is fine. Wish I could say it's worth your time. And it might be for some readers. I'm hoping the sequel's stronger, but it has a lot of debut author problems for me that I've talked about a lot, just like understanding character motivation. And that's huge for me. I love the world. I love how heavily inspired by South American history it is. But there's just a lot of things that needed to be tighter. This book's too long. Character motivations don't always make sense. But it's a really fun, high epic fantasy set in South American inspired setting. And we have literally like one of those. That's this one. So I'm excited it exists. But I wish it was stronger for me. Should we just do all the secret projects at once? I have 3 more of those. So The Sunlit Man. That one is great, but only if you're a Cosmere reader. Trust in the Emerald Sea. Also great if you like whimsical stuff. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is probably worth your time. That's probably where I rank them. Yeah. I have a should you read for the entire Sanderson series for this year if you want to like check it out and know my thoughts, my ratings, who I recommend them to, Cosmere reader or not, etc. There's a video for that. The Surviving Sky is one I just finished a couple days ago, and I think it's worth your time. For me, it's probably sitting around a 3.5 star experience. It's a little above fine, but it's not like great or new fave in my head. And part of that is that I love the world building. Oh my goodness, the world building is so fun. It's so cool. It's so vivid and interesting. But it's focused on this married couple that is like trying to come back to each other. And this has a societal structure that's like, it's interesting and part of the world building, but I just never felt like I liked the individual characters enough or them together. And to have all of those disconnects for me in terms of reading, it was hard. But I know people who I think really like this marriage that's being explored. So I think it's worth your time to try out. I had a good time with it. The Unmaking of June Farrow is a solid skip it. I just think it's so boring. I think it's so incredibly boring and not worth your time. Like, in any way. Regardless of my complaints about genre classification, it's a boring book. I don't like it. The Will of the Many is great. I had a lot of fun with that. I really want the sequel, like, right now. Like, right now. Hopefully we get it next year at some point. Like, I really want it. Thornhedge, also great. It's T. Kingfisher. Like, T. Kingfisher is always at least a great experience for me. Nothing has quite, I think, hit the nettle and bone-ness of it all, but this one was really good. Untethered Sky, for me, is great. I really liked it. I know a lot of people had issues with Untethered Sky. For me, I think this was the perfect space to explore the relationship between a person, their passionate career that involves, like, training a wild creature and what that means. And it's in a fantastical world, and it explores her relationship with revenge, her family, like, her found family, and, like, I really liked it. It's just so different from the Greenbone Saga, but it landed for me. Vampires of El Norte, we'll put in new faves, because I think of Nestor a lot. Like, I really do. And I bought a copy, and it's so pretty, and it brings me joy. Like, whenever I look at that book, I go, like, that means a new fave, right? Like, when I'm just like, I'm excited to figure out where to put that book on my shelf. That's when you know. Venko, I think Venko's great. Another contemporary fantasy that's just, like, about witches and North America. I think it's intersectional feminism. Like, it's not like groundbreaking, but it's super fun. It's written by an Indigenous Canadian author. So if you're looking for some more representation in your fantasy space, one of my biggest surprises of the year. Victory City, I think, is worth your time. I really liked it. This was my first by this author who's fairly beloved in the literary fiction space, and I want to read more by him. This was cool. It was like an origin story that I think is heavily creative, but also based on like source material for a city in southern India. So I love origin stories. Everything felt very alive and lived in, and watching this one woman who lived for hundreds of years and how she influenced this area was cool. So yeah, Wayward, I say skip it. I know it's very popular, but I don't like it. I just think it's so fine. It's such a good version of what it is. Like, it's okay. It's so okay. Like, if you want this type of story, like, I think Venko's better. I think, like, yeah, I think Venko is a closer version of Wayward, where you have, like, witchy women and, like, how they fight the patriarchy. Venko, I think, is so much better. But anyways, Wayward exists, I guess. And Witch King, I say skip it. Oh, yeah. Witch King is not... I don't know who it's for. There are people who liked it. I've watched reviews of people who liked it when I did my, earlier this year, my new release roundup. Like, I know there are people who like this. I am not one of them. And I think it's a very small percentage of people who are going to pick this up and, like, have a fantastic time with it. I think there are other fantasy books that are hard to read that are more worth your time. If that makes sense. Like, I guess it's a standalone, but, like, truly in terms of, like, what is the point? I don't know. Like, it wasn't entertaining, and I don't think the themes were that different or deep, and I don't know what this character was trying to do, and I don't know what we've really accomplished by the end. Like, I don't know. I say skip it, read a different book. So that's the tier ranking list. Again, sorry. Thanks for being patient with whatever the sound is for this video. Still getting used to moving into the new place, but I wanted to get this video out there. And yes, I did paint that at a wine painting thing. It's an okay thing. I like it there for now. Right now, just as a little, like, aside, the house still has, like, nails and hooks in. The owners didn't remove them. So currently, just whenever I take out of a box a thing that should go on a wall, I just find a spot in the wall where it'll hang. And they might not live there. But right now, we're just trying to get out of the boxes in a reasonable way. Survival mode is key. All right, if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, I don't know, maybe a horse for the Lightbringer cover. Cool, I just looked at my computer and that's what came up. And let me know your favorite new release of the year, your least favorite new release of the year. I would love to know. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.